Hi everybody, it's Joe Cioffi here, Fios One News Long Island and Fios One News New Jersey. Joe Rayo will be here momentarily, Fios One News Hudson Valley, as we take a look at what's going on weather-wise on this Thursday, April the 19th, 2018, coming up on 10 minutes after 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It's amazing, but the month of April continues to roll along. We are just about 2/3 of the way through, and we're still looking at snow that is showing up on local radars and in places not that far away from us. It's hard to believe that we're at this time of year and we're still dealing with this nonsense. We had sleet, not hail, sleet, that was reported in a few places in northern New Jersey and in the Hudson Valley. A lot of places otherwise sat in cloudy skies all day with a chilly rain and temperatures that didn't get much above the mid-40s. One of the four fishermen of the apocalypse is on tonight, John Sears, and the other three members of that apocalypse are myself, Howie Dwyer, and Phil Buzz Bazanka. We're all headed for northern Connecticut to go fishing for 3 days, and we better catch something while we're up there. Otherwise there's going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth. It is nuts, Jimmy Zindel, that we're still wearing gloves at this time of year. It really there's definitely a sense of unfairness to this all. By the way, I did happen to look. I was looking at some statistics. So far this April, at least for Central Park, we are averaging about 4.3, not counting today, but we're averaging 4.3 degrees below average, and if April ended today, it would be the 12th coldest April on record out of the last 150. Isn't that exciting?
Cold, cold, and cold. What else?
It really is ridiculous.
It is.
I was outside. I had my North Face jacket on, which normally this time of year would be enough, and I was freezing, one underdressed.
I think finally we'll start seeing some overall improvement. I think, first of all, I think it's going to be nice to see the sun for more than just a day or two. We're going to have
at least four, and maybe a part of a fifth anyway.
Yeah,
which is good.
And a slow warming trend. And in fact, by Monday we should have a most delightful day. I think, with a temperature, at least in the Hudson Valley, saying temperatures somewhere between 62 and 67, which is not bad. And a blue sky, bright sunshine. It'll be blue and bright on Sunday, but not quite as mild as that. And Saturday, not as harsh as what we're going to see tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to have sunshine, but it's going to be a gusty day with winds over 25 miles an hour, and temps in the low to mid-50s, which means that
ridiculous.
In the afternoon it'll feel like it's in the 40s. And it was in the 40s today.
And we should be up at around 64 or 5 on a daily basis now anyway. Vinny Dice Ruggiero had on his snorkel jacket today. I'm not surprised.
And I think I mentioned to you that between 5 and 6 o'clock today, my wife called up and said it's sleeting at my house in Putnam Valley. So it's, and you have to look at the calendar. It's the 19th of April, for goodness sake, and it's still doing what it's doing.
Joe Gaffney, who's in West Babylon, he just said he had a few ice pellets early this evening, even though it was short-lived. There's something wrong with all this. I'm sorry. This is at this point we should be done. It's all very tiresome to me.
It all kicked in. I blame the people out there who are the social media people. I'll put this over here. I blame the social media people who were complaining to us in that final week of February, saying after we had record temperatures, like winter is over, it's done, it's finished, and that's when we began seeing that big block develop, and hey, there's going to be a big change in the overall pattern. Well, it's now been, what, 6 weeks since then? Or
6 weeks.
I think it's about time for we have another pattern change.
Well, there's still, at least right now, there is we have this blocky signature. And actually, it's good that we have it now in one sense, and that is because of it, it has put us, I know we'd love to be in the middle of Europe right now, because it's warm there. We could show everybody that in a second, but I'll bring the upper air. We talk about blocks. The immediate place that most of the snow fiends go to is, that automatically means snowstorms. And no matter how many times I try and plead with them to understand the fact that not necessarily you could have all the blocking in the world doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have anything out of it. But right now, we're actually in a place where it's going to do us some good, because this upper low, this is still all part of the upper features that were running around with the storm from last weekend and on Monday that produced the blizzard in the Midwest. It's very, very slow to get out of the way. It's just kind of sitting there over Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and it's going to be sitting there most of the weekend. So as a result, we've got this northerly flow, which brings down dry air, but it also brings down cold air, but at least it's dry.
Right.
And the fact that weather systems are slowing down in terms of their overall motion from west to east anyway, because as we get deeper into the spring, that's what happens as the jet stream basically weakens. That system that you see down in New Mexico, that southern system, is going to also take about 4 days to move eastward. So it buys us some time, and we're in a good spot here because at least we're going to have some sunshine.
At least we're on that side of the coin now where we don't have a prolongation of day after day of dull, dank, dreary, depressing weather. This time we're on the other side, and we'll have a prolongation of sunshine and dry and pleasant. And actually, as with each passing day, it'll get a few degrees milder. And again, by the time we get to the start of next week, it's going to be really nice for a change.
You can see on the tighter U.S. view, when you look at the lines are drawn, they're running from southeastern Canada to off the New Jersey coast and off the coast of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. So our winds aloft are coming north-northwest from up there, and then you've got that upper low that's back in western Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma. It can't lift up into that because of the northerly wind. So again, this puts us in a good spot, and we have a nice big surface high. And just to show you, I'll just back it up here. So we'll go to tonight. Here's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even Monday. We're still under the influence of that high, holding things back. So we should be okay.
And while we're sitting pretty, I'm sure we'll be hearing on the national news about the poor folks in the Mississippi and parts of the Tennessee Valley who are getting nothing but heavy-duty rains and maybe even some heavy thunderstorm and severe weather activity to boot.
Yeah, this doesn't look like a widespread severe weather outbreak. And in fact, I did see something about the fact that at least in one particular spot in Oklahoma, it may be Oklahoma City, that they have not seen a tornado at all throughout this entire severe storm season.
Wow.
And that's the longest that they've ever gone. A lot of areas are having a relatively quiet severe weather season.
I know, but to me that's not very good news, because you just know that nature in her own crazy way will slowly but surely begin to realize that, hey, I have to
equalize at some point.
Equalize. I have to get the checkbook out and get everything all set. And there could, in essence, maybe in the end of this month or maybe during May, there's going to be maybe a bevy of...
it could be. I mean, what's happening now is no guarantee that it's going to be happening then. That's why a lot of you who are asking me, a lot of people have been asking me, does this mean we're going to have a cool summer? Not necessarily. We could go to a blast furnace. Maybe it does mean we'll have a cool summer. I don't know. You can't necessarily tie one to the other. Because we could see how different our winters have been over the years. That in years that we've had cold winters, snowy winters, etc., did not necessarily lead to cold springs, did not necessarily lead to cold summers, and the reverse is true. We've had really hot summers lead to cold winters. So the possibilities are
well, maybe not endless, but
not endless, but there's enough of them where. You can't unequivocally say it's cool now, therefore it's going to be cool 6 weeks from now, 12 weeks from now, 18 weeks from now.
And we've seen in the past, and I can't give you off the top of my head any specific year, but there have been years where it seems like the winter season or the chilly spring conditions would never seem to end. And all of a sudden, at the snap of a finger, bang, we're not just in spring, we're right into summertime, and we're into extreme heat. And then the same people who were moaning and being, I'll let you finish the word after the letter B, or whatever, rhymes with which. Or
stop.
But, I mean, the same people who were complaining about how cold it was, and they're now complaining about how hot it is,
Yeah.
and how humid it is.
One thing this would be rain with this system coming up would be probably Tuesday night or Wednesday, or maybe it holds off till Wednesday daytime. Perhaps it takes a day or so to get out of the way, but after that, I was kind of looking. It doesn't really look to be anything unusual. Looks like maybe the atmosphere settles down a little bit.
I don't see any blue shades in the immediate vicinity down the road.
All right, so let's keep it that way.
So let's keep it that way, yeah.
Now, let me show you, by the way, I was talking about Europe before because I did notice this, and this will leave everybody jealous if they want warm weather, because Europe at the moment is pretty dry. And even in places where it normally should be cold, as you go east and into Russia and Siberia, it's actually raining there. But when you look at the upper air, this is what everybody would wish we had.
Oh.
I mean, this huge upper high that is sitting.
What are the heights? Is that like 5?
585.
Oh, gee.
And when we look at the temperature anomalies, now that's a nice spring there.
I think the beast from the east is dead at the moment.
Yes, I mean it's warm everywhere. I'll let me put the 2-meter temperatures on here. Okay, so now remember this is at midnight.
Right.
But even midnight temperatures are near 60 across France and in Italy. In England, they're in the upper 40s and low 50s. And when we go to the daytime on Friday, we're talking middle to upper 70s across Germany and France and Italy. In England, there are even some low 70s in the southern part of England, 60s and 50s as you go north. But certainly it is warm. And that is what I think a lot of people would like to see here. And unfortunately, we have nothing resembling that at all.
Well, let's give it time. I'm not going to argue with 65 or 67 that we're looking forward to in the early part of next week. And again, that's for the Hudson Valley. For our viewers who might be down, let's say, in parts of northern or central New Jersey, inland areas, it could very well approach 70.
My mother is watching.
Mom!
This is the first time my mother is watching. I hope she's got the volume up. Hi, Mom. Dinner was delicious, by the way.
She's mad at me,
Why is my mother mad at you?
Well, I mean, like when I first joined the FiOS team, I came in on the Hudson Valley side, and that's
she can't. Yeah,
and
she keeps thinking I'm unemployed.
It wasn't my fault. No.
She kept asking me, and I kept explaining to her. Joe's doing Hudson Valley, I do Long Island and New Jersey, but it wasn't. I think she's finally figured out because she does see me every other day.
Right. Well, she sees you almost every night.
Well, that's true.
So
for a delicious
live.
Free meal.
Yes, live and in color.
Here's a switch. I don't remember the last time, although now I'm seeing it. There are actually a couple of winter weather advisories and a couple of winter storm warnings that suddenly have gone up in parts of central Colorado. But when I looked at this map earlier, there weren't any. There were no winter. There was nothing. The only thing we had were temperature-related advisories, like the freeze warnings that are up from southeastern Pennsylvania southward. Remember, this is the growing season, folks. So,
now, had they officially declared the growing season has begun in southeast Pennsylvania?
And in the lower Ohio and Tennessee Valley, and they got freeze watches there. And the problem in the Southwest is that it's unusually dry, so they got those red flag warnings up from West Texas through New Mexico and in Arizona and in through most of Colorado for fire danger, and various wind advisories and high wind watches up as well. So
this might be our first shot. Maybe by Monday or Tuesday, this might be the first chance that we here in our neck of the woods will see a red flag advisory. If we can get the winds to get strong enough on Monday or Tuesday. Certainly it's going to be very dry and bright and sunny and mild. Temperatures maybe reaching mid and upper 60s.
Well, we've had so much rain. I mean, that's the thing. The ground itself it's not as if we're coming out of a long dry spell. We've had a ton of rain over the last and snow melt over the last month or so.
Right.
I know I'm going fishing on Sunday and up on the Farmington River in Connecticut, and the rivers was running very high today. So it's got 2.5 days to get down to a level that's reasonable so that I can fish it.
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember now. I have a fairly good memory, but usually by this time in April, we've had at least 1 or 2 red flag days, and this is the exception to the rule. It would seem, and if we don't get any in the early next week, it may very well be quite some time before we see it. It's not the great, but that's not a bad thing.
No.
To have the forests and the places that are so dry they're like a tinderbox.
Mm-hmm.
But wow.
Dominic Braco was smoking a cigar outside at 39 and complaining because there was, well, he said it was hail. I have to take issue with you, Dominic. That was sleet. Okay, just so we stand corrected. But he didn't. He was trying to enjoy himself and was having a difficult time. But we've got some nice weather ahead. The only thing is, by the way, the next 3 nights or so are going to be cold.
Oh, yes.
Dana Geller, Feuerstein, Joe, will it be a rainy summer again like last year?
That's we were talking just a few minutes ago on your YouTube channel about whether or not it might be a cooler summer, and the only thing that came to mind immediately to me was the summer of '76.
Right.
And it was cool because we had quite a bit of rainfall. Now we already had one big shot of not even hot weather, very warm weather late last week into the start of the weekend, but I don't know whether or not that is a precursor to that being the only spell of heat that we're going to see. In '76 we had quite a different pattern.
Right, that was the Easter Sunday, got to 96, and that was actually the hottest temperature we had for the whole year. It didn't even get even get close in the summertime.
If we somehow manage to remain in this type of a pattern where we have unseasonably cool weather, that may actually work against having a lot of rainfall. We may have our share of rain, but I don't know.
I guess seasonally now we're also going into I guess that we could call it a quiet period in a sense, because we're soon to be done with the winter stuff if we aren't done already. But hurricane season doesn't start up for another 6 weeks or so. So the next few weeks it'll be whatever it is.
It's always tough to try to tell what's going to happen in advance during the transitional seasons, spring and autumn, because there are some years, of course, where, and this is one of them, where wintertime doesn't seem to want to go away, and it's taking a while for the spring weather to get traction, so to speak. You spoke about the hurricane season. This is going to be the National Hurricane Center. They use 6 different lists of names for their for naming the storms each year, and this year the list for the letter S is not going to have Sandy. Sandy was retired, and I forget what the new name is. I think it's Sarah. I'm not sure.
That sounds familiar. By the way, while I'm looking, Barbara Liedner wants you to go ahead and explain the difference between sleet and hail.
Oh well, hail is could be a particle in which is tossed up into the atmosphere. You get a coating of ice on it. It starts coming down and then it is sent back up again because of an updraft. A second coating of ice appears. Then it gets a little heavier and it comes back down again. But then another updraft occurs and it pushes it back up into the cold part of the atmosphere. And yet a third. You can have layer after layer after layer of ice until finally it just gets so heavy that it comes crashing down to the ground. So you get these little, pebble, dime size, quarter size, golf ball size pieces of ice, which if you take a knife and cut, you can actually physically see the coating.
It's like an onion.
It's like an onion. You see
and hail is a thunderstorm phenomenon, whereas sleet is just a raindrop that falls and freezes into like a tiny little ice cube.
Right.
And then if you catch it in the glass and you use it as a mixer.
And we had in viewers here who might be in and around the Yonkers area. I think it was like the year like 20. Oh, what year was it? 2006 or 2007. There was a hailstorm that hit Yonkers, Joe. It was tremendous.
Right.
And Yonkers had something like 4 or 5 inches of hail of hail that actually accumulated. They actually had to get the snow plows out to plow out the streets because there was that much hail. And this was July, for goodness sake. It was incredible.
I have to acknowledge Mary Schultz, or as I have called her for so many years, as we worked together at Channel 11, the evil Schultz woman. And I actually went to high school with her sister-in-law, Natalie Holmes Schultz. So good to see you here, Mary. You evil woman, you. Bob Wilson wants to know from you weather prospects for May 19th because Marist is having their graduation.
Well, May 19th? Maybe you ought to consult the Farmer's Almanac for that. But right now,
a little early in the game.
Come back. Maybe around May 7th or 8th or 18th,
or maybe the 20th.
May 20th. I could give you definitely what it was on May 20th or whatever.
All right, so let's. I guess maybe we can call it a night at this point. With the weather on the quiet side, we can take a break, but we can take a couple more questions.
Why has the notorious euro been so wrong so many times this year? Typically, the euro seems to be the dependable model. Not this year, though.
Well, these things run. I've always found that models work well for stretches. The trick is trying to figure out which one has got the hot hand. And this year, the NAM had the hot hand front and center. I think the GFS actually didn't do that badly in picking up on the overall trend of things. When you looked at it in the longer range, I think it handled systems generally better than the European. I think the European just had a god-awful winter. It might have worked well in other parts of the country. Let me just bear that out. I'm only speaking from our perspective and using it, as a tool for forecasting for our neck of the woods. It's quite possible, since we're not paying attention to every spot on the earth, it's quite possible that the European may have in general worked as well or better than some of the other global models when you do a general matchup. But in terms of how it did for us, did not do well.
We don't know whether or not they're also doing some slight little tweaking of the equations and whatever, or doing some experiments to try to improve things. And if they do these little experiments in the attempt to improve some parts of the globe, as Joe just mentioned, our part of the globe maybe this year didn't quite get the accuracy that we so much rely the European to have. And there's some good years and bad years. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, the European accuracy was not all that great. In fact, I think it was the year after the Sandy, 2013. It seemed like the European was calling for a major storm 5 or 6 days out, and then when we got into the actual realm of 2 or 3 days, all of a sudden the big storm that they had been promoting suddenly just fell apart. So
and remember, these are models. They're supposed to be used as tools and as guidance. They're not. They're supposed to guide us to what we're to forecast, and not be the forecast. And that's a very that's a very important point.
And I've never understood on Facebook and on some websites, they show you the map from a particular model. Let's say the European, that shows a potential big East Coast storm 6 days out, and they put it up, and then they say this. They explain just what we just said. This is just for guidance. This is not a forecast. Well, heck, if it's just for guidance and it's not the actual forecast, why put it up at all, and why stir the hornet's nest, so to speak? It doesn't make any sense to me.
You have to, and I've said this many times. If you're going to put it up, you got to give it some sense of. You have to give some context to it,
right?
And that's what sadly most of the time doesn't happen. There's no context given. It's just put up there, and everybody sees it, and the reaction becomes almost rabid and fever pitched at times, and it's totally avoidable. And yes, Michael McGrath, models never have to apologize. I agree with that. Timothy Veltman, you mentioned, because you were on you missed the YouTube cast I did. Joe came in at the very end of it, but we had to stop, so I told everybody to jump on board and watch us on our live cast here, which we are about to wrap up. So
and that's about all for now.
Yep, I'm not going to be here Monday and Tuesday, so tomorrow will be our swan song for the week, and then I'll be back with you next Wednesday.
Well, we have to explain also, we didn't have a Joe and Joe on Tuesday because you were under the weather.
Right.
And last night I had to go into the city for a meeting at the Museum of Natural History, for the instructors meeting, the annual meeting where we have to decide what we're going to do in 2019. And so we're back tonight, we're back tomorrow night. And then, again, you're gone for a couple
Monday and
of
Tuesday.
Well-deserved couple of days of
well, I'll post some
Western wee-waxation at West.
At West. And hopefully I'll catch some twat while I'm up there.
I saw where you're going to be staying, and that's a nice place to stay.
Oh, it is. And it's not, Joe, it's really not that expensive. So it's a nice place.
You see, what you're bringing
I'm staying at Legends Bed and B&B in... up on the Farmington River, which is on at the very end of Route 8. If you go into Connecticut, north on Route 8 in Litchfield County, north of 84, it's about a 15-minute drive from there, and Route 8 ends. You get off the exit, you drive a very short distance, and there's this beautiful lodge. It's a farm lodge, and you go out on the deck in the back, you go down a flight of stairs, you walk about 20 yards, and the river is right there, and it's just awesome.
And you would be bringing, of course, you will be bringing your fishing pole. In contrast, if I
I'll
were
be bringing 6 fishing poles.
6 fishing poles.
Three
Okay.
three fly rods and 3 standard rods.
It's like you're like a golfer. You bring your putter, your woods, your this and that, or whatever. But meanwhile, for me, if I were going to a place like that, I would bring my telescope. I'd probably be.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be great. There's no light pollution at all.
You're there during the day out with the poles, and I'll be out at night with the.
Well, you could fish during the day and do the telescope thing at night.
Well, if I'm out all night, though, I'm going to be dead by the next morning or whatever.
Well,
but that's neither here nor there. We like nature, and I hope you enjoy your few days.
And I'll be there because one of my fishing buddies was on earlier. I call the four fishermen of the apocalypse, because if we don't catch anything, there will be an apocalypse. So we will we'll see what happens. But Joe and I will both be here tomorrow night. In the meantime, at our usual time, at roughly 9:15. In the meantime, I will be on Fios 1 News Long Island and Fios 1 News New Jersey coming up on the top of the hour at 10 o'clock.
And I'll be on Fios 1 Lower Hudson Valley, and that reminds me, tomorrow night, I'll just give it a brief mention tonight, but this weekend is the weekend of the Northeast Astronomy Forum, the biggest space and astronomy exposition in the country at Rockland Community College, and in fact I'm going to be giving the opening remarks on Saturday morning. But it's a 2-day event, and if you're into astronomy and telescopes and all that sort of stuff, you might be interested in coming on down. And if you see me strolling around, you will be seeing me stroll around. Just say hello, and I'll mention more about it tomorrow night.
All right, awesome. And Bob Wilson just put up the link to where I'm staying, so if you want to take a look at it, go right ahead. I do recommend it. I've been there before. It's a really nice place. So if you like to fish and you want to try fishing in Connecticut, by the way, the fishing license in Connecticut is a year license is $55, and then an additional $5 for a trout salmon stamp. And by the way, I practice catch and release, so I catch them, I take my picture, and then I put them back.
You see?
Yeah.
You're like Bob Ross, the painter. He says, I can't. He fishes, he catches it, he pats them on the head, and he just
sends them on their way. All right, folks, have a great rest of your evening. Try and stay warm. We will see you tomorrow. Jeff Sienna, you just joined. You're too late. I'm saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
So you have to watch it on the replay.